Okay, well, I'm here with my new friend from the UK, Dr. Sara Pugh, and she has a PhD in molecular mechanisms, and she was the first board certified quantum biologist. That's a really fancy certification. I want to know more about that. What is quantum biology? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about her 9-day fasting experience. We're also going to talk about some really unique elements of health and healing, things you may not have heard before. I mean, she's a quantum biologist, right? And so we got to figure out what that is. And we're going to talk about sunlight. We're going to talk about mitochondrial health, all kinds of really good stuff. So you guys are in for a treat here. But Sara, thanks for joining me all the way from the UK.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, quantum biologist, let's break that down. What is that?
Okay, in simple terms, it's just looking at health through light, water, magnetism, and with a big focus on things like mitochondria, which I think your audience are familiar with. But also we add a little bit of physics like electrons and protons. So before you get lost, with electrons, it's sort of our electric current or our life force. So it's just a different way to get new insights into sort of old health problems or get a deeper understanding of why, say, a keto diet works or how fasting can be beneficial, how light impacts our sleep, how different colored light can impact hormones and neurotransmitters in the body. So it's just extra information to give people new tools for combating this society at the moment, because we do live in a somewhat toxic world, but I can assure you that there's ways out of it.
Yeah, 100%. We have, I was just talking earlier today, I was doing some videos. I was talking about how the average person is consuming a credit card worth of microplastics
Whoa.
every week and a dinner plate worth, right, of microplastics every single year. Isn't that incredible? So we're just being exposed, bombarded by toxins everywhere. Now, quantum biologists, so you're talking about light, water, you're talking about all these different inputs and how they impact our biology. What inspired you to get into that?
Actually, when I did my PhD, I did a lot with light and proteins and protein folding, but I didn't really make the link between that and my health. So I think I got into it really because no matter what I did, I used to get mood swings all the time and I used to have trouble sleeping, and I didn't really understand about seeing sunrises and how it was setting my body clock. So I wasn't careful with blue light in the evening because I was working as a scientist then, and experiments, don't just work 9 to 5. They can go on and on into the night. And then as I've got older, once you get past about 45, you always want, what can I do to stay the same or still chase after kids, still do the things that I want to do. So I was also looking for more sort of the physics of anti-aging, and that's how I got into quantum biology. And I have to give Dave Asprey the credit that a very long time ago on, I think it was what's it called, his Bulletproof Radio, he was talking about blue blockers and red light panels. And I think he's always been into saunas as well, which is something, I'm glad you mentioned the microplastics, because when we talk about the fasting experiment and the autophagy, I use a lot of saunas. And I think that's one of the few things that can get the plastics out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think it was just more like the mood swings that was bothering me. And then when you get into a new form of health, you find out you had problems you didn't know you had. So when I got into the water and the magnetism side, and then learning more about what technology can do in an adverse way, it just opened up this gigantic rabbit hole, and I'm still in it. So it's a good time to be sort of sharing this with people, because the good thing about quantum biology is lots of it's free.
Yeah. Like you talked about light and watching the sunrise. Let's break that down. What happens when we go out and we watch the sunrise in the morning?
Well, with a sunrise, it's a particular mixture of colors of light. So there's always near infrared coming from the sun, and that's really important for our mitochondria. That's there 24/7. But there's a special blend of red and blue and violet light at sunrise. And this, in simple terms, sets our body clocks for the day. And it also switches on really important hormonal cascades in the pituitary gland. So we want basically our machine on time and starting in the morning. So we can, I think an analogy would be like an airport or a FedEx depot, that if the timing's off in an airport or a FedEx depot and everything's trying to happen all at once, it creates utter chaos in the depot or in the human, if our body clocks are all over the place. So if we see the sunrise, it's a good time to set these body clocks, because they do drift through the day, and then we set them again at sunrise. And as we know very well, a lot of people's chief complaints are hormone imbalances.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And also just from a sort of mindset perspective, I think it's much better to go outside, see the sunrise, than to go and look at Twitter or read an email, because there's always going to be something in there that you don't like. And then the ancients were really keen on doing something called eating the sun, where they allow the sunlight to go into their eyes. And then people like breatharians have taken this on board, because when we talk about the fasting later, the environment actually provides a lot more energy to us than we think, not just food. And I think a lot of people struggle with overeating and cravings. So I think seeing the sunrise is a great start for multiple reasons. And also, I think just going outside, because it's slightly colder in the morning as well, people can get a little bit of fresh air, a little bit of cold thermogenesis, which has lots of benefits.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you do get benefits if you're watching the sunrise from your window, right? Because those wavelengths, some of them will still get in and penetrate you. And just seeing that will help activate cortisol and catecholamines, but you're going to get a lot more benefits if you're doing it outside.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, because with the sunrise, there isn't any ultraviolet light, and the UV is the one which stimulates the production of the neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, those classes of hormones. Then with glass, it blocks about 50% of the red light. All of the blue and the greens can get through. So failing being able to go outside, you could see it through glass, but it's not going to be the same benefit, because also if you're inside, you're not near the Earth's magnetic field and you're not grounded.
Yeah.
But when I work with people and they've never heard of seeing the sunrise before, and it's all brand new to them, and they've got to change their whole schedule, that would be a step in the process to just see it out of a window. And I think there's a famous study to do with a psychiatric hospital where all of the patients who are on the sunrise facing side got better much quicker than those who were on the other side of the hospital.
I saw
So
that.
there is benefits to just seeing it through glass. But like everything, it's all a work in progress. And I like people to sort of progress more to actually going outside.
Yeah.
But then I appreciate some people have got chronic pain, so they see it with the window open while they're on their bed.
Right. Yeah, you can do that.
So,
See, I always wake up, like for me, the sunrise in the morning is what wakes me up. I like my room being dark, obviously. Fortunately, I don't have like a big street light or something like that that I have to block out, but I like there to be enough, space to where the sunlight can come in the room in the morning, and that's when I wake up. And then, just like you were saying, first thing I do is I go out, I get some coconut oil, put it in my mouth to oil pull, and I take my dog, who you happen to meet.
oh, yes.
I take him outside on my front lawn and I just ground, right? And I use that as time to pray, and the sun's rising. It's beautiful. I think one of the other benefits is I think we were made to be in a state at times, obviously not all the time, but to love beauty and be in a state of awe, right? And there's nothing like a sunrise or a sunset that really makes you love being in nature. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And the sound of the birds tweeting.
Yeah.
And then also you can smell the flowers in the backyard. That's what I like to do. Also, I'm glad you mentioned you're praying, because I do my spiritual activities outside. Because without going too deep into the physics, it is actually a better time to do such things. I always find I get a better connection. But there is a physics explanation for that, but I'll leave that aside.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'll have to come back to that.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. And there's also another important thing I've just remembered about the sunrises. We were going to be talking about mitochondria later, and people are probably familiar that that's where our food ends up, and they dictate our metabolism. And there's something called the TCA, or the tricarboxylic acid cycle. And the sunrise and the morning light's really important for getting that to sort of turn properly. So a lot of things to do with metabolism start in the morning.
Is that particularly the red light activating the cytochrome oxidase enzyme?
In part, but it's like more complicated than that. There are other pathways that tie in. It's like there's the central retinol pathway, and then this ties into the thyroid pathways. So again, with metabolism, there are definitely studies more and more coming out about morning light exposure, lower BMI, better insulin resistance, easier weight loss. So there's numerous benefits for every level, whether somebody's spiritual or whether somebody is interested in a better metabolism. People who say get wired and stressed easily, going outside, like you said, and chilling is a good way to start the day.
Yeah, I always say the quality of our life comes down to the amount of high functioning, stress resilient mitochondria we have in the
Yes.
cells of our body, because that's what burns fat for fuel.
Yes.
So if we want to have a good metabolism, we've got to get those mitochondria activated. So getting out, obviously getting in the sun, movement also helps to activate them. Early morning movement, just getting movement in general is so key. And there's an ancient proverb that says, if you want to have great energy during the day, watch the sunrise.
Mhm.
And if you want to sleep well at night, watch the sunset.
Yeah.
So you talked about the sunrise. What happens at sunset?
Okay, we've kind of jumped a step because there's something called the UVA rise when we make our melatonin. Well, we make the serotonin to make melatonin for later. So that's an important part of it. But then when we see the sun set, it's a way to tell biology that it's now time to wind down, because biology hates surprises and it's slow. So if it suddenly got dark, that would not be great, especially when, humans used to live outside. You could get eaten by something if it suddenly got dark and we weren't ready. So the sunset and the colors there start to tell the gut to quieten down. It's time to sleep. The pancreas starts to go to sleep. The body starts to make the appropriate hormones for getting ready for sleep. But we still have to be really careful about the artificial blue light, because even if you see the sunset and do all that perfectly, if you suddenly go to the mall at 10 o'clock, where you're just going to wake yourself back up again and get rid of all the melatonin you've been building. Or say if you decide to have a Netflix binge, even if you saw the sunset, you're still not going to sleep as well as you could. But if you have a good evening hygiene and you see the sunset, it's just an extra part of this sort of what we'd call a circadian rhythm, or making sure everything in the body's on time. It's just an extra tick to the box so the body thinks, oh, okay, it's evening time, it's time to get ready for sleep. And like I said, biology is quite slow. So seeing the sunrise, I wouldn't say it's as important as seeing the sunset isn't as important as seeing the sunrise or the UVA rise, or we haven't got into UVB yet, vitamin D. If somebody's new to it, the sunset is sort of more of the icing on the cake, but definitely there are benefits to it. But I would say for a beginner who's never heard of any of this, to start with the morning light. But as we know, there are always people that just want to do everything. And I think if you've got the chance to see the sunset, then definitely go for it.
The sunset's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can mess it up. It's like having one good meal, but then messing it up with eating a bunch of, processed snack foods later. You could do that too by going inside. After the sun is set, you should have all your blue lights, all your lights dimmed or completely off, and use candlelight. You can do that, or a fireplace, or just have everything dimmed, right? Like you probably only need one light on your, entire floor and have it dimmed if possible. If not, you usually can do well on candles, right? And then you can also have blue light blocking glasses if you're using electronics to help block out any of that blue light, because that's telling your brain that it's daytime, right? So that's a good way of doing that. Now, you wanted to talk about UV light, right, and stimulating vitamin D. So what's happening during the day when we're getting sun exposure?
Well, we went over the UVA, and that's we talked about the neurotransmitters, which is really important for mood, and then making the serotonin to make melatonin later. Also, the UV light regulates thyroid hormones, and the UVA makes something called alpha MSH, which makes melanin that people would associate with a suntan. But also, alpha MSH is an appetite suppressant, because as humans, we can act as a solar panel and get energy from sunlight. There was actually a paper published really recently that shows that sunlight helps the electron flow or the electron tunneling down the mitochondria. As you quite rightly said earlier, if our mitochondria function well, so do we. So there's that aspect of the UV light as well. And then the UV light also makes endorphins and enkephalins. So these are feel-good compounds, and also enkephalins, I think, are also painkillers. So there's numerous, it opens our biological pharmacy, is what some people could say. Then the next one is the vitamin D, which so many people are deficient in, and how the supplements are a totally different beast to what we make ourselves, because we make about, I think, 20 different kinds of vitamin D. And then the UVB is what comes out sort of later on, probably from about 10:30 till about, say, 4 o'clock, but it'll change throughout the year and where you are. And this is what we need to make vitamin D, and this gets made out of cholesterol. So this is important to get plenty of UVB exposure, because as we know, vitamin D is linked into not just bone health, but also immunity There's links to low vitamin D and obesity, all sorts of things. I think it's part of 200 reactions in the body, maybe even more. So getting the light from, say, about 10:30 to about 3, that's when we can sort of make the most vitamin D. But also some people have to be careful that we have different Fitzpatrick skin types. So if you're, say, a 0, people with red hair and very fair skin, they have to be really careful. So they go in and out of because you don't want to get burned.
Right.
So we've got this different kind of UV that's in the middle of the day. Then that'll go away. Then we've got UVA towards the end of the day. Then, like you said, we've got the sunset. So we've kind of gone through all of the day of what people can do at different times of the day, why going out at different times has different effects. And then, like you said, if you do everything perfectly and then forget your blue blockers and have everything too bright in the evening, you can unfortunately undo everything, because although light drives life, darkness is also vital, because I suppose the lack of light, or it would be just the lack of illumination. And then we need the darkness to make melatonin, to heal, to sleep properly. So it all sort of ties in that we need a balance of both the light and the dark.
Yeah, I just did a video on the top 2 deficiencies that increase your risk of cancer and heart disease. And it's not nutrient based, it's sunshine and darkness, right? Getting adequate sunshine, like you just eloquently talked about, and then also getting good darkness, right, is so critical for optimal healing. And so, yeah, super important stuff. And UVA is what gets the bad rap, particularly from dermatologists, because that's the one that it increases melanin, which allows you to tan, right? And that tanning is kind of your body's natural adaptive process, and there's a lot of benefits to that. But if you get too much of it, obviously it can also cause burning. And so there's a lot of dermatologists that will tell people they should wear sunscreen every time they go out during the middle of the day. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, well, that's like wearing sunglasses. You're blocking the signals from the sun, and the complexity of light that comes out of the sun is astronomical. So if you're blocking your eyes where the majority of the signaling happens and your skin, then everything inside, because all these signals get propagated, the mitochondria are going to be confused. They don't know what time it is. The hormones and the organs are going to be confused. Like lots of gut issues are from sort of bad light sort of exposure, because everything in there is on a clock. So yeah, wearing sunblock and sunglasses is a really good way to confuse your body. And also, like I said earlier, biology is slow. So if you wear sunglasses in the day, it makes your brain think it's pitch black. So the vitamin D making pathways are not ready. So when you go out, your body's like, whoa, what's this? I wasn't expecting UVB light. I thought it was the middle of the night. So yeah, they really interfere with the signals from the sun. But like anything, you have to use common sense. Very occasionally I'll use that zinc oxide if I go surfing or something, because with the water or skiing, it can reflect off and you can definitely get burnt. So you still have to use common sense. Obviously, driving, you're not going to cause yourself any damage long term if you drive with sunglasses on, so as not to have an RTA.
Yeah.
So with a lot of it, it's just as best you can not to wear sunblock and sunglasses, but obviously always think of your own personal safety.
Yeah, that's key. And I think the important takeaway here is we have to look at light differently.
Yes.
And light is actually information into our body, just like food is.
Yeah.
And poor light exposure, something called malillumination, is to the body what malnutrition is to the body. So if we're being malilluminated, lots of blue light at night, not enough sunlight during the day, we're going to end up with chronic illness, just like if we have bad nutrition habits.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like as you said, there's different colors of light. For example, I know that a lot of your following are very much into insulin resistance, and then artificial blue light pushes cortisol up, blood sugar, and insulin. So sometimes it's not necessarily people eating the wrong thing. They've got a junk light diet, and that can obviously make people more prone to cravings. When people's blood sugar's all over the place because of terrible light and low dopamine, then they wonder why they can't stay out of the fridge. So there's definitely it's not just the amount of light, it's the type of light and what time of day you get that light. And definitely in places where there's less light, there are more melanomas. I think I was reading yesterday, I think there's more in Minnesota and Iowa than there are in California and Florida. And then there's definitely more melanomas in places like the UK than there are at the equator. So it doesn't correlate with sun exposure. There's other things going on. And this demonizing of the sun by the dermatologists is sort of not very fair.
Yeah, and typically the sunscreens they're telling you to take are full of chemicals, full of toxic chemicals, seed oils, things like that actually create more oxidative stress on your skin as well, right? And they get into your bloodstream. Anything you put on your skin is going to get into your bloodstream, and so you're just adding a higher toxic load. So yeah, it's a big issue. I don't recommend sunscreen unless, like you said, if you're at the beach, in Florida or, somewhere where you're close to the equator, you're not used to getting that much sunshine, you might need some. Try to get some organic, natural sunscreen and give yourself 45 minutes, an hour, or whatever it is before you actually apply it. That's what my family and I try to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Or just use the shade. And the other thing,
exactly.
With the sun creams, they block the ultraviolet, but then it lets the blues and the cyans, it concentrates those in the skin and they go deeper. So it can open people up to basal cell carcinomas. So it may protect certain people against overexposure to UV. And also the other thing, it can make people stay out in the sun longer than they should.
Yeah.
And people can overheat, get dehydrated. So definitely there's problems with sun cream. But like you said, you just use common sense.
Yeah, and you can do things from a diet perspective too. Staying well hydrated is key. Eating a blood sugar stabilizing diet, right? Getting a lot of good quality saturated fats, which resist oxidative stress and will make up more of the cell membranes, give your skin more protection. Avoiding seed oils, so avoiding the corn, soybean, safflower, cottonseed, canola oil, all of that stuff. And eating antioxidants, eating colorful fruits and vegetables. All of that will help kind of give you a natural protectant. And there's also an antioxidant called astaxanthin. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, yes, that makes the salmon and flamingos pink. Yeah.
That's right. And you think about salmon, they're like one of the strongest species on the planet. They can swim upstream.
Yeah.
So number one, that takes a lot of strength, a lot of energy, mitochondrial energy production. And they're able to jump 12 feet out of the water, right? While swimming upstream. So their mitochondria are able to produce so much energy so quickly, and they have to be resilient at handling the metabolic waste, the oxidative stress that occurs there. And so astaxanthin is the antioxidant that's credited for that. And you can take a supplement with astaxanthin if you're going to get a lot of sun. And it almost acts, I'm sure you could still get burnt, right? But it's going to give you more protection in the sun.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And also definitely the PUFAs, the seed oils, when people cut those out of their diets, they burn less. And there's something else really interesting about salmon and why they're so strong. With DHA, the omega-3, it's a very interesting quantum molecule because it can turn light into direct current or electricity and back to light again. So again, with these omega-3s, people may have heard of them as having benefits to the brain and the heart, but they didn't realize it was something that can also bring electrons into the body, because DHA has a lot of electrons that comes with it. But then Professor Michael Crawford has spent a lot of his life studying it. And I just think the idea of this molecule that's been conserved for 600 million years can turn light into electricity and back into light. And then obviously salmon and those kind of fish have a lot of DHA in them. So there's other reasons why the salmon is like a superpower. I have seen them. We can watch them jump up the there's different places you can watch in the UK, but I think it's quite motivating because they'll get halfway and fall and they never give up. They just start again.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Yeah, they are.
The EPA and DHA are the very long chain omega-3 fats, right? And like you said, a lot of studies crediting them with improving brain health, cardiovascular health, all this kind of stuff. But they have an impact with light and water and how the cells communicate. So.
Oh, absolutely. And also the DHA can line all cell membranes, and this can help build what we call fourth phase or exclusion zone water. So this is the special water inside us that lines everything. And this water is particularly special because it can charge separate, which means it can act like a battery. And this fourth phase or exclusion zone water that Dr. Gerald Pollack first started to talk about also forms a barrier. And a lot of people are plagued nowadays with leaky gut, leaky brain, leaky everything. So this exclusion zone water not only is really important for all of our chemical reactions, but also particularly important in the gut. And then also there's implications for lack of exclusion zone water in blood vessels. And that's one of the causes of heart disease and atherosclerosis, because I did my postdoc on cholesterol and statins, and I can tell you that it's not anything to do with cholesterol.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more to DHA than people think. And that's what we were talking about, that a lot of your audience will know, oh, yes, EPA, DHA is good for the brain and the heart. And then I always want to know, well, why? and I
Right.
dig
Dig
deeper
deeper.
and deeper and deeper. So there's a lot more to these omega-3s than people think. And I just wanted to add the sort of quantum, the water and the electricity perspective
Yeah.
on top.
And that structure, that fourth phase of water, that structured water,
Mm.
we get it from eating fruits and vegetables,
Mhm.
right? So it's naturally in fruits and vegetables, so we can consume it that way. But also infrared light on our skin, right, will start to
Yes.
activate and create that inside of our body.
Yes, exactly. That's another reason why with heart disease, the lack of near infrared from the sun is catastrophic. And Dr. Pollock published a paper really recently showing that blood flows without a heart or a heartbeat. And we know with sort of clots and things, it's flow dynamics or sludginess that's also is a terrible risk for sort of clot development. So absolutely,
Yeah.
the near infrared that you'd get from going outside is one of the best things that people can do. And then also on the converse, being in an airplane when you're inside basically a flying microwave full of farts, and and then everybody's on their Wi-Fi and their phones, which is very dehydrating. That's where there's a huge clot risk because it's like the
Mm.
opposite to what we were talking about earlier, being outside, grounded in nature. So that's where sometimes people begin to think, oh yeah, that makes sense now. I always feel terrible when I fly.
Mm.
And a lot of people will take aspirin or wear special socks because they know if I'm going to have some kind of clot, it could be on a flight. So, and that's probably the most dehydrating environment
Yeah.
on the planet, the complete opposite to the
So
lovely
I
backyard.
always say we want to keep things moving through our body,
Yes.
kind of like a river, and not
Yes.
being stagnant like
yeah.
a pond. Like in Chinese medicine, they say stagnicity, key stagnicity, is at the root of pretty much all chronic disease.
Mhm.
And you think about a pond, it smells like fermentation,
Mhm.
right? There's algae, there's all these plants fermenting. It just stinks. Whereas a river has like a kind of a crisp type of smell to
Yes.
it. It smells like life.
Exactly. And then we always want the electrons to flow in the mitochondria. Everything's
Right.
moving. It's like with life, it's like a dissipative structure. Everything's dynamic. So absolutely, we always want the flow of the blood. And the heart is much more, it's not a pump. It kind of vortexes the blood, a bit like in nature when you see vortices and everything in live water, in living water, in a river. So yes, this idea of everything flowing and crisp, cleanness, freshness, whatever you want to call it. And like we can parallel it to, electricity flowing in neurons. We want that to be efficient. We want, as we said, mitochondrial efficiency. So yes, definitely,
Yeah.
everything should be moving. Everything should be dynamic.
For sure. And I actually think the structured water, when we consume fresh, organic fruits and vegetables,
Mhm.
of course, many of them have antioxidants and different nutrients, but I actually think it's the structured water that gives us the most benefit when we're consuming those.
Also, if you can,
Especially your fruit, especially like your pineapple, a lot of the different watery fruits, juicy
absolutely.
fruits.
And also, if you can pick it fresh, it's still
Yeah.
got, I would call it, just in simple terms, the life force. But you can sort of measure all of this now with much more advanced Chilean photography than they used to be. So if it's fresh, you've still got additional life force. But yeah, there's definitely sometimes, in particular, this weather here in Atlanta, watermelons are sort of something. If I see them in the shops, I'll turn back and go and get one.
Yeah, and especially during the summer. In the summer we should be getting more UV light, right?
Mhm.
More sun exposure and being more insulin sensitive
Yes.
because we're getting that. And therefore the sugar that we're consuming, we're able to process better. And then we're getting the structured water because we're more dehydrated because we have got the heat and humidity.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I suppose with Georgia, it's very good at growing crops because it's better to eat plants that are seasonal and local. So
Oh, yeah.
so that because all matter or masses, we can just pretend we can call it light that's slowed down or frozen, or there's lots of different ways to describe it. But then we ideally want the food we put in our mouth, the light information, to match what the mitochondria and our gut microbiome are expecting. So definitely Georgia's a great place for melons and
Oh, yeah. Peaches.
peaches. Oh,
Georgia
the
peach,
Georgia peach is like a beautiful woman, isn't it?
This time of year, I like to
Yeah.
have a peach every day.
Yeah, I really
Right.
like the muscadines here because we don't have them
Yeah,
in the
muscadine
UK.
grapes. Muscadine grapes, any sort of fruit that has the astringent
Mm,
flavor to it, right? Like a pomegranate, cranberry,
yeah.
muscadine grape. It's kind of like it's not a sweetness, it's like a sour, almost like a sourness, basically. It's a astringent quality to it. That's ellagic acid. And ellagic acid is a preferred polyphenol for Akkermansia muciniphila, which is one of the keystone bacteria in the gut. And it breaks it down and creates urolithin A, which strengthens the mitochondria, right? Urolithin A is one of the most popular and expensive supplements out there.
But doesn't it,
but if you eat
it works, though.
Muscadine grapes, right, that will actually help feed that Akkermansia what it wants to produce urolithin A. Another thing actually that helps Akkermansia is fasting.
Yeah.
Fasting actually has been shown to increase Akkermansia muciniphila levels, which lives deep in the gut. Muciniphila means mucus loving, so it can literally eat mucus, right, and still produce urolithin A from it. And so it's really, really powerful keystone bacteria. You just had this 9-day fast, right? Just recently. Can you tell us more about your experiment?
Oh, yeah, sure. Because actually you asked a question about UV light and sugar, which I hadn't forgotten. I was just it'll tie in with the fasting. Yeah, I meant to do a 9-day fast just based on a colleague called Dr. Darko who wanted me to try his protocol, because I have done a 7-day fast before. So I always fly fasted just because, for the reasons I just explained, airplanes just are the best way to dysregulate everything in your body, your autophagy, your blood sugar, your brain. And then when I got to Atlanta, I decided to just carry on for some unknown reason. So, and then I decided I'll add in some extra little bits of experiment to enhance autophagy, because there's numerous benefits to fasting, and one is the autophagy. And I think it's better if you go into these more extended fasts. So I decided to add in some serapeptidase, some ivermectin. I'm not a fan of melatonin supplements. However, melatonin dosing, there are protocols for lots of different things. So I decided to add in some of that. And I found out some really interesting things about American labels of gummies that are meant to be sugar-free that most definitely are not. So I had to abandon the melatonin. Then I got really into saunas because they can enhance autophagy and cold therapy. So I did really well with my fast, but then I decided to run some labs. Everything was fine, but my leptin was really, really low, like 0.7. So I just decided to end the fast a day early, and then analyze the labs and then reconvene and do my fast again. Because when I thought about it properly, I did think it was a bit much to fly all the way from England to Atlanta. Then I was just sort of still, I think, on day 2 of my cycle, which is not for women who are listening, not the best time to do it. So that's why I stopped the fast. But definitely after doing that, I'm going to do it again, because I think a lot of what people struggle with the fast is some of the things we've been talking about earlier: cortisol going too high, not being able to sleep, feeling hungry all the time. So I think I'll probably do another one maybe in about 2 or 3 weeks, because it's a really great environment where I'm staying to capitalize on nature to get energy and other things we've talked about from there. So that's what happened with my fast. And when I ran my labs, it hadn't done anything to sex hormones or things like that, because I think with your work, you're very much into lab testing, and I think a lot of people don't test leptin just because their doctors never order it, or they've not heard of it.
Yeah, now we hear about high leptin, like leptin resistance, that a lot of people have. And leptin is this hormone secreted by your fat cells that triggers up in the hypothalamus, part of your brain, and tells you basically you're satiated and helps activate fat burning. And so when leptin is high, which most people have high leptin resistance, what's the problem with too low leptin?
Yes, with leptin, when I'm describing it to people, I'll just say that it's like an energy accountant, that it'll report to the hypothalamus how much energy is on board, and it measures it in an electromagnetic way. So it'll measure how much light did you absorb, how many electrons have you got, what's the state of your water battery. So it's not just how much food did you eat, and that's where a lot of people get confused. And this is how quantum biology can be a really helpful tool for people who are struggling with low energy or weight. So leptin can't, if it had eyes, it wouldn't be able to actually see body fat, because it's like insulin resistance. People can be starving yet obese, even though there's plenty of supply on board. And there's lots of things we can do to interrupt leptin, like eating just before going to bed, because that's going to trigger insulin, and it doesn't report to the brain properly about the energy status. And then people don't burn fat properly at night and have weird cravings the next day. So that would be like the high leptin. Also, as we talked about before, blue light dysregulates insulin, cortisol, and other hormones relating to metabolism, but also blue light really affects something called melanopsin, which is a blue light receptor that's sort of a partner or um, an associate of leptin. So that's adding to the obesity recipe from a leptin perspective. Also, with the blue light, it does something else. It really messes up the vitamin A or the retinol, and there's a link between low vitamin A and obesity. So all of this tied in with what we've been talking about is one way that people get leptin resistance. Also, we talked about UVA light a lot, and there's something called the leptin melanocortin pathway that in simple language is just the way in which how much sunlight you get gets recorded in the body, and then it can be electromagnetically reported by leptin to the brain of how much energy is on board. Then we can look at, say, something like low leptin, that people could get low leptin from all of the above that we've talked about. But generally, as you said right at the beginning, fat cells make leptin. So people who get very, very low body fat, like bodybuilders or fitness models or people with disordered eating, that's one way I've seen low leptin. A fast of that's 7 days, that would trigger sort of the this sort of scarcity mindset in the body on a biochemical level, so it could go very low. And then also a lot of people I've worked with who've, say, had trauma or emotional stress or in chronic pain, because pain from a quantum biology perspective is kind of leaking of charge. And then again, if you leak charge, then leptin can sense, oh, that we've got an energy crisis here. So with leptin, the more I study it, the less I understand. But then in my case, it's not a real leptin problem. All that happened was that it would have been stressful doing a flight and going into a new environment, and then to fast, it would have just been recording, hey, you, that we're having a bit of an energy crisis here. And then the other thing, when the lower leptin goes, it can, when it's working appropriately, it can sort of trigger hunger signals. So there's a lot more to leptin that I'm just trying to fit it in a sort of way to cater for the high leptin people, the people whose leptin's probably okay, and then the people with lower leptin. So definitely, I think with low leptin, for sure, I think that the food component is stronger and the body fat percentage is stronger. But even people who want to have sort of 8-packs or bodybuilders or people I know, they say, you're looking at a picture of me from a photo shoot. I'm not like this all year round. So that's all I would say of why my leptin had got that low. And I just decided I'll stop the fast for a bit, because leptin also controls thyroid hormones, sex hormones, and other hormones, and immunity. So I thought, if I keep pushing this, I'm just going to create problems, and it's like the laws of diminishing returns. What's the point of doing a long fast, focusing on autophagy, just to create a different problem?
Yeah, for sure. Now, were you noticing any symptoms? Did you have cravings? Did you feel like you were fatigued, brain fog, trouble sleeping, anything like that?
No, not really. The only thing was I just was a little bit cold, but then we don't use AC or aircon in the UK, whereas in Atlanta you have to. So it was really hot outside, and if I went inside, it was like being in a fridge. But that could have just been slightly dysregulation from changing environments. And then I think it was...
And when you go on an extended fast, your thyroid hormones kind of go down a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think
kind of like a hibernated
after
state.
3 days it goes down.
Yeah.
And then it pops straight back up again as soon as you eat. I think same with leptin, because I reordered my leptin labs now that I've stopped the fast, because that's the other advantage of where I'm staying is Quest is 10 minutes away.
Oh, yeah.
And the amount of money I've spent there is... But the thing is, that's the only way to learn, is to test, because everybody's an individual. And I think it's really important for people to test themselves in their own labs and their own experiments, rather than just thinking, oh, Sarah did this and her leptin went that low. So somebody else might be completely different and their leptin might be 30. So it would really benefit them to do extended fasting for a bit, along with all of the circadian stuff. Because the other important thing, when you asked, was I hungry or had cravings, that the amount of sun in Atlanta is crazy. And then, as I said, my friend has
especially when you compare it to the UK, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I can go outside and ground, and I don't wear shoes. And then we have like a hydrogen machine, and I'm very obsessed with making structured water. So I wouldn't say it was hunger that got me. It was more, I happened to decide, oh, I'll run some labs. And then I just, you have to sometimes use common sense, because I wasn't trying to achieve anything. I wasn't going to do a photo shoot. I just planned to do this 9-day fast, and then this opportunity arose because I always, like I said, fast traveling.
Yeah.
And then I just thought I'll just keep going. And then it's sort of, when you do one experiment, it opens up sort of new experiments, because now I want to know how long will it take for all of the labs I measured, that how will they change when I went back to eating normally for a week.
Yeah.
And I think also when you break a much longer fast, it's a whole different kettle of fish, because I foolishly ate some fermented carrot a bit too soon, and it just really, my gut wasn't happy at all.
Oh man, that didn't work out. I love fermented carrots.
Oh no, I do. This is from like a friend of ours called the Fermenting Fairy, which obviously to British people, that name's really funny, but then everything's called something different in the United States. So yeah, so I think sometimes with these extended fasts, with the gut lining, because I know a 3-day fast, you'll have pretty much a whole new gut lining, but I think what I learned from that fast is that it's a whole different refeeding protocol, because when it's like an 18 or a 24-hour fast, as long as you don't eat, I don't know, a giant ice cream and pizza, it's going to be okay. But this was
basically
different.
After 2 days, so 2 full days, like about 48 hours fasting or so, you stop producing digestive juices. So you're not producing your stomach acid, bile, pancreatic enzymes. So from there, like after 2 days, I always say, like if it's a 3-day, usually one kind of easy meal, like bone broth, right? Maybe some fermented vegetables or a protein shake or something like that. Something that's kind of pre-digestive, kind of wakes your digestive system up. And then every time you add 2 days, you need one more recovery day. So like if you do a 5-day fast, basically you need about 1 to 2 recovery days, right? And then so a 9-day fast, you probably need 3 or 4 recovery days.
Yes, I should have asked you for advice before, because
the refeeding.
I'd done 7 days before. That was for charity a long time ago, so I had to do it, and it was, I didn't know very much about quantum biology then, so I can't say it was comfortable, and the sleeping was awkward. But yeah, this time with that length fast, there is a special procedure, because I definitely bought and had bone broth, but then I think I made some mistakes with other things too early, because I was thinking back to when I did 7 days that it would have been the same. So yes, it was, I wouldn't advise the fermented carrot too early.
Yeah.
But there was cheesecake in the fridge, and I was desperate for that. But I think you can actually really mess yourself up if you eat. Isn't it called refeeding syndrome?
Yes,
you can really mess
syndrome.
up your potassium and sodium.
Absolutely. Yep. So there's a structured way of coming off of that. If anybody wants more, I actually have a great article on my website on how to break an extended fast that you can check out. But yeah, so 9 days, you really didn't have any symptoms other than just feeling a little bit cold. You broke the fast because your leptin was low.
Yes.
And you wanted to make sure you didn't get into kind of a starvation mode.
Yes, yeah.
Right? But proactively broke the fast. And but overall felt good, other than you ate some food and had some GI issues.
Yeah, I think, and then I ate some meat a bit too early as well. But I think what you said about the digestive juice, I think for a longer fast, it takes them a bit longer to wake back up again. Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
But
I
definitely feel good, and I think like if people want to do a fast that long, it is worth sort of, if people are healthy, to stack in things which can enhance autophagy.
Yeah, like you did the sauna, for example. It's one of the best things you can do. Something I try to do. I try to get 100 minutes a week in my sauna.
Okay.
Haven't showed you that yet, but it's in the other room. But try to get 100 minutes every single week. Now, it's broken up, right? It's usually over like a 4 to 5 day period, 20 to 25 minutes a day. And I do my reading in there, and I feel like $1 million when I'm getting that 100 minutes in a week.
Yeah, I think the Finns are the sauna. That's the in Finland, because I think there are more saunas than people, but they have the lowest rates of dementia. But I like it that you've got like a set amount, because I've just been experimenting with a steam sauna and a near infrared sauna. And I like the steam sauna better because we nearly didn't do this interview because I suddenly had this terrible cough and cold. And I thought, oh no, I can't come because, I'm going to have to, because I'll cough all over him. It'll be awful and embarrassing. But then I did, I think, 2 saunas and 2 cold plunges that day, and I was outside all day. I think I took some minerals, some Quinton, and that was it. And I fasted. And then today when I woke up, I'm almost back to normal again. And I think I have to attribute it to that steam sauna, because that's my new thing. And there's a cold plunge, but that's a whole other topic. If we open the can of cold therapy, that we could be here for another hour. So definitely, I think the steam sauna,
especially if you're congested.
yeah, it was it was brilliant. And then the other sauna, like you say, the sun, we use a sunlight, and then that's you can go in and read, but it takes longer to warm up, and I can be a bit impatient. Whereas the steam sauna, I think it doesn't have the near infrared, but it has other benefits because there's all the heat shock proteins which help align other proteins in the body. It stimulates autophagy. Obviously, we talked about sweating out microplastics.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I just recently interviewed Connie Zach from Sunlight, and she was telling me that actually that you get more penetration of the near infrared, actually more penetration into your cells when you first turn it on. The higher the heat, the less penetration, but you get the benefit of the heat shock proteins.
Right.
So I personally like a really hot sauna.
Same
so
here.
I get my infrared sauna really hot. But she was telling me you will get a lot of benefit even just turning it on and getting in.
Okay.
Even if it's not hot, because you're getting more of that penetration of the infrared. Isn't that interesting?
That's fascinating, because I think a lot of people are like me, that they turn it on and go away. And then,
yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, now I know that it's like everything. Sometimes we always think we need a massive amount of something, whereas the little bit, there's a whole other layer. That's so interesting.
Exactly. And for some people, like, you know, there's people listening that have complex chronic illness.
Yeah.
And getting too much heat stress is too stressful for their system, right? Overwhelms their system. So they can just get one of these saunas, turn it on. You don't even feel the heat really. Like you might feel a little bit coming out of, you know, the vent, but you're not going to even get that hot, but you'll still get the infrared benefit, right? So personally, again, I like it real hot, but if you're not there yet, or you just don't have time, right? You don't have time to let it sit and heat up, you're still going to get benefit getting in there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I love little things like that.
Yeah, little hacks.
Every day's a school day, but I think always catering for people with chronic illnesses, like I mentioned, doing cold plunges. Someone just doing a cold face plunge, everybody can do that, and they get all the benefits of the neurotransmitter boost, and even maybe, I don't know whether it helps with any insulin and leptin signaling, because I know with a big cold plunge it changes hormones. But I think that's really important, because people with MS, I think, are particularly intolerant to extreme heat, whereas if they know they can go in for a little bit and then come out, I think that could be massively beneficial. That's really interesting. Every day's a school day.
Yeah, definitely. And you were talking about how a cold face plunge, so just getting some cold water, right, that you kind of put up on your face, which actually closes your pores, good for your skin, good for your collagen on your skin. But what other benefits are you going to get from that?
I think from the cold face plunge, you'll get the neurotransmitter benefits. So you'll get some norepinephrine, then you'll get some oxytocin, and oxytocin is in the same pathway as BDNF, or brain-derived nootropic factor, which exercise and fasting stimulate. So that sort of cognitive and nerve growth. But I think with the oxytocin, that's one of those hormones that's really high up on the hormone hierarchy, like leptin.
That's your connection hormone.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Your love hormone, your trust hormone.
That's right.
Your
so you get that from just splashing some cold water on your face.
I think you'd have to, you put it in a basin and put your face in, but you can put ice cubes and stuff in. And also you can actually put carbonated water in, because carbon dioxide has additional benefits. Because I completely agree about the closing the pores, making the collagen, but the bubbles of CO2 also encourage extra blood flow, so you get a double hack. Good. So like putting San Pellegrino in with some ice cubes and sticking your head in, I mean, it's safe for everybody to do that. So you get the neurotransmitter benefits. I don't think you'll get the brown fat and the insulin and the leptin benefits from the face plunge, but then I don't know.
You'll feel more energized because of the neurotransmitter benefits.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's really important for mood, because in places like the UK and England England, all of Europe, Canada, the northern states, winter depression's a big problem, but we have plenty of cold up there in the winter. So using cold approaches or cold thermogenesis in winter is a really important way to combat SAD, because when we expose ourselves to cold, the cells make ultraviolet light inside. So it's like having our own little bit of sunshine from the outside. Well, sorry, not from the outside, but from the inside. Yeah. So I think there's a reason, or there's ways in which you can stay happy in cold places. Like I think Denmark and Finland won the Happiest Nation award again, and they have horrible sun and it's plenty of cold there.
Yeah, and they're getting in their saunas,
Oh,
like you
yes, they
said.
do. Yeah, and they eat plenty of fish as
Yeah,
well.
true, true.
And also, I think in Finland, they've started to have much more outdoor schools where the children go outside, they don't wear shoes, and the levels of ADHD and bad behavior have gone down a lot, and the
Yeah,
scores in
that's
the
great.
tests have gone up hugely. So it shows again, if you stick children under artificial blue light. So all of this that we've been talking about is not just for adults. I
Yeah,
think a lot of it's for children.
100%.
So definitely with these schools in Finland, it's the behavior and the grades that just sold it to me totally.
Yeah, for sure. You know, everything we were talking about today, I
Yeah.
mean, outside of actually owning a sauna, doesn't
Mm.
cost you anything.
Yeah.
Getting out in the sun, grounding your body, right? Getting cold exposure, none of this
Yes.
costs anything, and it has huge impacts on your physiology. And really, ultimately, what it comes down to is we need to make sure we're connecting with nature and also getting uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
In some way every day, ideally in multiple ways, right?
Mm.
Every day. So it could be getting uncomfortable with heat,
Mhm.
could be getting uncomfortable with cold. Exercise is a
Mhm.
way of getting uncomfortable. Fasting is a way of getting uncomfortable. So we got to choose our kind of tool of uncomfortability, right? And embrace it for that day.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, Marcus Aurelius was very much into the Stoics, about, what's the proper definition for hormesis? What won't kill
Mm.
you makes you stronger.
That's right. Yeah. And hormesis is this
Yes.
idea that we need bouts of stress,
Hmm.
right? But they can't be overwhelming levels of stress, So if we have a certain threshold for our stress tolerance, we want something that kind of pushes right up against it, but
Hmm.
doesn't overwhelm it. So that way, we're able to adapt, heal, recover, and become more resilient to the stressors we face tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely, because that brings up a good point, because we always tend to demonize cortisol. I mean, not us, but we mentioned
Yeah,
cortisol and
totally.
how blue light raises it and then it messes up blood sugar. But then people get frightened of cortisol
Right.
and then they'll tell me, oh, no, I can't go in a sauna or exercise because my cortisol might go too high. Oh, no, I don't want a cold plunge because of my cortisol. But yeah, exactly, those little sharp spikes of, I think in some ways it ties into vagal tone, that if you can get stressed out and then
Yeah.
recover quickly, that's a very, very big hallmark
Yeah,
for
and that
health.
that is big too, because there's kind
Mm.
of this emerging movement in the natural health world where people are like, you actually have to eat every few hours, right?
Mm.
You have to constantly eat. There's a lot of people talking about eating a high carbohydrate
Mhm.
diet and like literally sipping on carbohydrates all throughout the day
Mhm.
in order to make sure cortisol stays
Oh,
balanced,
yeah.
right? And then they say, well, fasting is terrible because it increases cortisol. But what they fail to realize is that cortisol is an incredible hormone. It just needs to be balanced with
Mm.
growth hormone, right? Like cortisol does not become destructive to your body because it
Mm.
can become catabolic and start breaking down muscle tissue. But if it's balanced with growth hormone, then it ideally gives you like this optimal physiology for performance because cortisol is awakening, growth hormone helps preserve your lean body tissue, your bone and your muscle, and now you have this physiology of performance.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I suppose we make growth hormone when we sleep.
Right.
When people
Yep.
that's why having an
And
early night is
also when
good.
we're
And we're
fasting
fasting.
too.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. So it's supposed to help balance or counteract, the detrimental effects of cortisol.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, exactly. And I think also I know what you mean about the eating the high sugar diets.
Yeah.
Things are trending, but that this brings me back to the UV light in the summer, that people again can demonize carbs, because yes, sure, I come from a ketogenic diet
Yeah.
background, but then if you just do too much keto for too long, you can
That's
get
the problem.
funky
Yep.
T3 and you can get funny progesterone. So absolutely, it's a time and a place. I'm just thinking about my teeth and the idea of the sugar all day.
I know, right? Exactly. I mean, ultimately, you want your body to be a really good fat burner and a
Mm.
really good sugar burner. In order to help it become a great fat burner and a great sugar burner, you have to stress it with, times of fasting, right? Low carb diet, but also times where you're consuming more carbs,
Mhm.
right? In order to make sure you're still burning sugar well as a fuel source.
Yeah, definitely. Because also I think with free radicals in the mitochondria, that with a keto diet or low carb, it makes more water because fat has got twice as much electrons. And the way the electrons flow in the mitochondria is different if they come from fat. So it skips over complex one, and that's the one that leaks a
Mm.
lot of free radicals. So yes, technically burning fat is less inflammatory. The Baltimore studies and many others have shown this. But there are times when we do need to run the electrons through complex 1 in the mitochondria because it wouldn't be there otherwise. And then this is really important for signaling. There's something called a superoxide surge, which is important for fat burning. And also doing that, running all those electrons through that complex, turning them to free radicals will kill mitochondria that are old and damaged. So there is a time and a place for everything. It's like people tend to think, oh, everything must be just eating meat or everything must be just eating carbs.
People are extremists.
But it's always exactly as you said, if you shake things up a bit and if you understand biology, then you know when to do something and when not to do it. And then people get frightened of words like cortisol or insulin or free radicals, not realizing that they're all there for a reason. And we need to learn how to sort of manage them and make them work to our advantage. Because actually you mentioned growth hormone, but don't growth hormone and insulin oppose each other as well?
Absolutely, they do. Yep,
yes.
No doubt. Well, you know, we could go on and on. We're going to have to do a part 2 for sure. Next time you come down to Atlanta, we'll do a part 2. But people can find you at busysuperhuman.com, right? Busysuperhuman.com. Also on Instagram and on TikTok.
Yes.
And you're doing videos about all these different concepts. Busy Superhuman. Just look up. That's your line, your handle on TikTok.
Yes.
Right. And on Instagram. And then busysuperhuman.com is a website to reach Dr. Sara Pugh, quantum biologist.
Yes.
Well, this is great. I really enjoyed this interview. Any last words of inspiration here for our people, our community?
Yes. Yeah. Never stop learning and never stop being curious.
Love it. All right. We'll see you soon. Be blessed, everybody.